Hey, everybody, and welcome to another Lioness community event. I know people are just getting themselves in the door and settled. If I don't know you already, hi, my name is Bobby Carlton. I am the publisher, editor in chief of Lioness Magazine. I'm also an entrepreneur myself and the founder of Innovation Women. And today we are having a fun podcast party. If you are not familiar with this, it is National Podcast Post Month. So, all things podcast. And as Innovation Women, we actually have an upcoming webinar next week on podcasting. And so today we're going to be doing things like talking about podcasts that help us with our business, our own podcasts. Have you ever thought about podcasting? And then everything else that like floats our boat. So, getting started. Actually, I see some folks that are already dropping their hellos in the chat. If you haven't done so yet, tell us where you're coming in from today. And maybe if you want to connect with other people, feel free to drop your contact info into the chat as well. So, just going to go to that second slide and remind everybody that we are respectful here in terms of our. Hey, Liam, can you switch the slides for me, please? We are respectful of others. Put your intros and promos and stuff into the chat. Stay muted unless you're called upon. And also use that raise your hand function if you have questions or input for the ongoing discussion. We always try and prioritize questions. So anything that you've got to promote or wins or whatever, drop that stuff into the chat. Next slide there, Liam. This is today's agenda. We'll be doing our welcome and our event introductions. Again, we're going to be talking about podcasting and guesting. We're going to have a group discussion. We'll do some breakout sessions, and then we'll have our takeaways and wrap ups. Just a reminder that we tend to write articles because we are a magazine from these sessions. So we, wherever possible, take notes, and you may be quoted unless you say, "Don't quote me on this." Okay. Next slide, Liam. Future events. We've got some great stuff coming up. One of our members is going to be giving us a session on how to write a winning book proposal without the stress. That's Deborah Ecklinger. Man, can you tell I'm like struggling with the voice today? Still. Next slide, please. And also, we have our next networking session, and we already have a topic for that. We are going to be talking about emails and email marketing and email newsletters. So, if you want to join us, that will be Tuesday, December 10th. And we have dropped the link into the chat. So, if you're interested in joining us, you can actually register right now for that one and for the next webinar as well. So, next slide, please. So, just a little advertisement. If you're interested in joining us, you can join our community of female entrepreneurs. And there is a link that we are sharing in the chat with that one too, I believe. Yes. Okay. Cool. Thanks, Laura. All right. What we're going to do is kick us off with a little survey. And what we want to know is tell us about your podcast. So, are you a podcaster already? Are you a podcast guest? Are you a podcast listener? Or are you a podcaster curious? And what do we mean by that? we mean you've been thinking about starting a podcast. So that is where we are podcast curious. You're thinking about it and you are looking for more information. So, and if you are both having a podcast and you're a guest, I do believe you can select both of those. Is that correct? Yes. Team tells me yes. Got a big thumbs up on that. You can select multiple options. So cool. So far, so good. All right. Almost everybody has participated in that. Just give it another couple of seconds. If you are interested in sharing your podcast journey, I guess. All right. Nifty. We all set with the podcast survey. All right. So, yep, we have some podcasters in the audience. Awesome. Whole bunch of podcast guests, whole bunch of podcast listeners, and we have some podcaster curious. All right, cool. I think we're going to stop sharing the slides and get into discussion mode. Hey everybody. So, let's talk about favorite podcasts and podcasters in the group. This is your chance because we know your own podcast must be your favorite podcast. So if you're interested in joining in the conversation and sharing the favorite podcasts that you have, especially those podcasts that help you grow your business, select that, raise your hand, and we'll kick off that conversation. So, Meg, tell us about your favorite podcast. What helps? How does that help you grow your business?
Yes, so I am a recent convert to Amy Porterfield. If y'all know her, Leah Goldman, who is part of Lioness and Innovation Women, Bobby's not in her head. Leah introduced me to Amy Porterfield, and at first it was annoying because she's very peppy. Um, but golly, y'all, I have gone down the rabbit hole of Amy Porterfield. She is very impressive. Her podcast is called Online Marketing Made Easy. Now, I am a lifetime marketer. I've been in marketing for 25 years. I'm an executive coach and I'm struggling to get the courage to market myself. And gosh darn, her enthusiasm is infectious and it makes you believe that you can do it. She's a former corporate girl. She says it in her announcement. But I think the best part about it is she's motivating. She's a woman business owner who is crushing it right now, multi-million-dollar businesses. She does all the things that we talk about in here. Obviously, she has a podcast. She gives very practical tips. I hate when you listen to a podcast and it's all just motivation and theoretical and very high level conceptual. And you're like, yeah, duh. Amy gives you directional, comprehensible to-dos. And
Nice.
I take, Leah and I have a shared note that we take notes in every podcast that we listen to. So I was on a flight the other day and I just went ham on Amy Porterfield and I took notes and am sharing it with Leah. You also get introduced to her network, Laura Belgray, who's a copywriter, Jenna Kutcher, who does all the things. Y'all probably have heard of her. Um, she's friends with the guy who wrote Coach Builder. I can't think of his name right now. Just her network of people are so valuable. And then you start to, it's like, oh, Susie Moore, who does PR. So it's all the things, all this free content and totally digestible and usable to help you move your business forward. So highly recommend.
Awesome. That sounds great. And I love that little detail about you and a friend with a shared note. Nice. That's a stealable strategy. All right. Kimberly.
Yeah, so of course, I'm going to mention my own podcast because it's definitely one of my favorites. I actually have two, one for photographers that I do with partners, and then one around entrepreneurship. So the one around entrepreneurship is The Business Animal. And the other one is called Cowgirls with Cameras, which is focused on people who want to explore and share the Western lifestyle. So as far as podcasts other than my own, I would second Amy Porterfield. Amy Porterfield is actually who I started listening to years ago and really sold me on the idea of doing podcasts. I've done her course on building courses and built a six-figure course with that information and a little of my own know-how. So that was pretty cool. And other than that, and I'll put my links in the chat, but another podcast that I really think is great for those of you who are marketing is anything done by Social Media Examiner. They have several podcasts. One is AI Explorer, one is Social Media Marketing Today. They are so crucial in being able to keep up with what is going on in the tech world. And for so many of us, we just don't have time. If you're running a business, you don't have time to focus on those things. And they're super fun. And then on another note, I'm also a crime junkie, so I listen to lots of murder podcasts. My 2 cents.
There's something to be said for the cathartic nature of that. Okay, I get it. All right, Emily Carlson, you're up next.
Oh, thank you. And I'm going to say my podcast as well is my favorite because it's truly actually my favorite hour of the week in recording this, and it is called Powered by Authenticity. And really, my podcast is meant to elevate equity and inclusion for women. So I bring forward women who share their stories, share tangible tips for growing in their own success and also resources. So if you're a woman who is on a professional journey, or actually just a person, if you're on a journey for your profession, being able to hear challenges and triumphs from others, and really take away some tangible, actionable tips and tricks from others that they've gone through in their life. So I'll post a link. Outside of that, I'm a techie at heart, and also I love fitness. So two podcasts that I love. One is Hit Like a Girl, and that's meant to focus on healthcare IT and just fun conversations about the industry and field as a whole. So lots of good information is shared there, as well as another one called Jordan Sayat Fitness. And he is just a realistic way to approach your health and fitness and how that actually extends over to other areas of your life. So mine and then a couple of others.
Awesome. All right. And again, folks, we're focusing on the things that are helping you grow your business, but you can't be running your business if you're not feeling so hot.
Mhm.
Speaking from experience. All right, Carrie.
Hi, thank you. I love yours, Emily. I'm going to be in touch with you about your podcast. I'll certainly check it out as well. Carrie Gallant, I'm an executive coach and I focus on women leaders. And I have a podcast on YouTube. I'm graduating it as I slowly build it, and it will be on Spotify, etc. And it's called the Tall Poppy Revolution Radio. Why the tall poppy? Well, because I work with ambitious women leaders who dare to put their head above the crowd. And you know what happens when you stick your head above the crowd? You might risk getting your head chopped off like a tall poppy. And so I starting this revolution with the idea of bringing tall poppies together. So this is a podcast about and with ambitious women who dare to step up and put their heads above the crowd. So that's my podcast, and I'd love to connect with Emily for sure because I love that authenticity. Some of the podcasts that I listen to that I find Amy Porterfield absolutely is one. Another one that I like to listen to is by Eleanor Beaton, and it used to be called something before Anchored Intelligence, and now it's called Women Owned, I believe. What I love about listening to her is she doesn't pull any punches. I think she's worked with Amy Porterfield as well in the past. Her background is corporate as a communicator, a communications specialist, and she gives a lot of advice about building what she calls a financial fortress in the business, but also about you know just building that business from a level of um, going to six figures and then seven and beyond. So that's somebody I like to listen to. I've also been exploring and bringing human design into the work that I do with clients. So I listen to a bunch of different people. The person I listen to the most is her name's Julie Ciardi, Ciardi, and she has a couple of different podcasts, one called Brand, and the other one that's specifically on human design. Here, she has a background in marketing. She used to be I think a senior VP with IBM in marketing. So she's got the chops and then left. So she's got that segue from corporate to entrepreneurship. And I really appreciate her viewpoint and her no nonsense tactics and what
Got
to
it.
do.
Okay, cool. All right. We're talking for anybody who's just joining us, we're talking about those favorite podcasts that help you grow your business. Okay, Barbara Ann.
All right, so there's actually quite a few. The favorite one that I love to listen to is A Bit of Optimism with Simon Sinek. I'm a multi-credentialed coach, and I'll talk a minute about the shows I'm on. And one of the things I love about him, including that he has like Brene Brown as a repeat guest, and I learned about her in grad school and love her. I love the fact that he talks to people that you wouldn't necessarily know what they've been through. And that informs how I approach client work with my business. Like whether it's magician David Copperfield or I used to be a fan of a show called Entourage, and the lead actor on that, Adrian Grenier, never knew the rest of his story and why he's not even visible now. And so that kind of stuff is fascinating. I have a business partnership with First Class Business. So I'm a host. I'm one of multiple hosts for a show called Vision Pros. And that's cool. And it's also part of their marketing funnel. So that's been a huge learning experience. And I get to talk to people that I might not otherwise talk to about their vision. And they go through a multi-level process before they even get to the podcast stage. So they've been vetted and to ensure that they're authentic and somebody that we would want to feature. And then one of the reasons why I came today, I have a show, it's wrapping up its third season called What the Why, like WTW instead of WTF, with Barbara Ann, and it's on an online streaming TV platform. And in 2025, it's going to pivot to a podcast. So for the last 3 years, I've been working with a production team and a studio and had specific like rules that had to be followed for commercial breaks from their sponsors and a format. But the show basically features conversations with diverse leaders from all walks of life about why they do what they do and how they figured out their purpose, often through pivots. And so this is going to be the first time I'm like delving into this, for lack of better words, on my own without someone else calling some of the shots. So I'm hoping to learn a lot today from all of you as well.
Awesome. All right. I want to make sure that we have time to get into breakout rooms and have deeper discussions. So I'm going to cut it off after Ione. All right, Deborah.
Well, I'm so excited to be here. And before I share how much I love podcasts and my podcast, I was scheduled to be on a podcasting panel next week in LA for Digital LA, and I am the only woman on the podcast, which is kind of like ridiculous, but at least I get to represent, right? Somebody posted, hey, any podcasters out there with more than 10 episodes? And I'm like, well, 200 on one and 82 on the other. And the next morning I said, hey, Deb, do you want to be on this? So we've got such a strong voice. And I was thinking, so Bobby would be, it would be better if it were 2 and 2, but at least 1 to 3 represent, right? So anyway, I'm Deborah Eckerling. I am a goal strategist, speaker, author, workshop leader. And I host, as I said, 2 podcasts. Goal Chat Live. So every Monday at 4 p.m., I bring in 3 guests to dive into the topic of the week. And I love, it was right when I walked in, whoever was saying that they're actionable tips, because that's what my podcast is all about. It's bringing together 3 people. Usually they don't know each other unless it's on purpose, but really diving into the topic and giving actionable items. And then we gift everybody with a goal something that they could do immediately do as it relates to the topic. And I love featuring innovation in Lioness women. So please reach out if you're interested in being on one of my panels. It's every Monday at 4 p.m. live and then released as Gold Chat Podcast, which is on the Marketing Podcast Network. And if you go to marketingpodcast.net, it's like, and I love that mine is considered marketing because of lifestyle, personal, professional, everything kind of in that slurry together. But if you're looking to discover new marketing or elevate your business type shows, it's a great resource. My other show, my award-winning podcast is Taste Buds with Deb, and it is on the Jewish Journal Podcast Network. So this one's a little different because they're pre-records and one person, but just diving into these conversations about food, cooking, and community. I think podcasts are like one of the best ways to elevate who you are. It's great speaking practice, but also to host one, the tools are there and it's so easy to dive in. So, yay, go podcast. I've got a new book coming out in January, 52 Secrets for Goal Setting and Goal Getting. So I now have a wish list of people to pitch myself to share this conversation. But the other thing about the new book is it's about elevating each other, which is kind of what my podcasts are about, right? Giving that forum to share your expertise, but to introduce other people to your audience and vice versa. So all podcasts are wonderful and great training ground for chatting. Deb out.
All right. And Marta, you're up.
Hi, Marcia. I also have my own podcast, which is called The Business Emergency Room. Yeah, it does exactly what it says. So I have first aid kits to triage business challenges and disruption. I also have episodes that cover scars, so that guests who come on and talk about business emergencies that they went through. And I do live on air triage, and that tends to happen actually more on stage and then doesn't get broadcasted on the podcast for confidentiality reasons. But it's been a great segue into getting me speaking gigs, actually, interactive speaking gigs. I listen to a lot of podcasts, but all of them are not business related. I really struggle to find business podcasts that I really want to follow. So what I do, because podcasts for me are a good way to learn something whilst I'm on the road. So if I'm struggling with something or I want to dive into an issue, I take a bit of time at home to dig into the podcast and find episodes on the topic from a few different podcasts. And then I just download those to my phone and snack on those. And sometimes I shut an episode down within 5 minutes. I'm like, okay, no, I'm very impatient. But I find that a good way to kind of get what I need and get the learning what I need. Because I do think a lot of podcasts in the business space are set up with variety. And I seldom want to go really deep down a rabbit hole. And I appreciate all the great tips for podcasts to check out here. And I'd love, to hear more of those.
Absolutely. And for everybody who's just joining us or came in a little bit late, we're talking about podcasts to grow your business. We also recognize that not everybody has to be their own podcaster. You can be guesting on other people's shows. And you could also be here today because you are podcaster curious and thinking about it for yourself. There was a conversation in the chat talking about kind of the lines are blurring these days. What is a podcast? It's probably one of the reasons that we have a feature on Lioness that we call Cool Casts, because we recognize that these things are showing up on a lot of different platforms. So I know personally LinkedIn audio is growing like crazy. There's stuff on YouTube. We do, I would call it a cast here on Lioness, where I interview founders on a on and off basis. So lots of different options in terms of recording things. So Amanda, tell us what's up for you. What's the good stuff you're hearing?
So the good stuff I'm hearing, my two favorites are the big deal with Cody Sanchez. And I don't know if any of you ladies are familiar with her. She is just like breaking the rules. I love her very frank delivery of money and business and just how to like do it. So she has YouTube and she has podcasts, and she's awesome. And then for me, I'm a stylist. So I do website style, interior design style, and your personal style, and just make you feel amazing and that you can take on the world. And so my other favorite is the Style Academy International with Luisa Gabrielle, and she's out of Boston, and I'm from Maine originally, so I like the go New England. And then true crime, because, addicted as well.
We all need something.
Yep. It's like
All
you
right.
learn what not to do and what to look out for and to run away from.
I was like, you learn what not to do, don't get caught.
Yep.
I don't know.
No.
Okay, just saying.
Yes, run away from.
Run away from. Okay, Carol Ann.
Hi, everyone. My business is a little different because I am in the history and Shakespeare business, but I started a podcast 5 years ago. I just passed my 5-year mark about history, royals, rebels, and romantics. And I'll just say the way it has helped my business is I have been able to meet some amazing historians by interviewing them or helping them promote their latest book or their latest television program. So that is one of the ways that you can gain access. I've found, I'm talking to people I never thought I'd be able to talk to. As far as what I like to listen to for my mindset, I really like Mel Robbins a lot. So that would be my recommendation, just to really believe in yourself. Thank you.
Excellent. And I love that point about it's a great way to meet VIPs. All right, Ione.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ione. Thank you, Bobby, for doing this. I've taken so many notes of so many interesting podcasts. So there are about 5 podcasts that are my go-to religiously every day. And that is because you can find episodes in small chunks. So my 2 favorite ones for anyone who likes no fluff, or they lean more towards a bit of like tough love in the way they receive advice. I love the podcast called Build and the Game by the Ormozis. So Layla Ormozi and Alex Ormozi, if you know them, they're part of that generation of Cody Sanchez as well. And it's very interesting because you get to have like episodes from like 5 minutes to an hour or plus. They're very practical, and they are breaking the rules right now, both of them, and they're making waves online and offline and in business in general. And I think it's just very refreshing to hear a non-traditional way of doing business, but with of course an ethical flair, with a modern flair, and always ethical. So I really appreciate those 2 podcasts. Then 2 a bit more not business related, but they help me as an entrepreneur. One is called the Women's Meditation, and I've been listening to that podcast. They have episodes for morning meditations, for like anxiety meditations, very short, very digestible. I've been doing their meditations for years. It's called the Women's Meditation Network. Another one that I really love, it's called The Daily Quote by Sean Croxton. And again, very digestible. And that is because I run a social media agency along with my leadership coaching. So I need small chunks to be able to consume my podcasts. And the Daily Quote, the why I love it, it's because he hosts speakers, like a variety of speakers. So you get to learn from, let's say, like all kinds of speakers. So which is really nice. You get to expose yourself to different entrepreneurs or industry leaders or just inspirational individuals, and it's very interesting. And lastly, another one is The Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett, and these are longer episodes. They go in depth about topics, business related or life related, that involve all of us, and they're just they go in depth, and he brings industry leaders, and they're just very interesting, and you just get to learn things from experts in every single topic that he brings on board. And that's it.
That sounds great. All right, so Our next activity today is we are going to do breakout rooms and allow people to talk to each other. And what we've done is we've given you some breakout room question options. I just dropped those in the chat. And also, if you want to, if your update of Zoom doesn't give you the option to look at the chat, there is a link to a Google Doc that you can go and just click on that now. That gives you all these questions to allow you to see the breakout room discussion questions. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up these breakout rooms, small groups, 15 minutes, and then bring everybody back for a bigger conversation. What did you learn? What are the big learnings out of your group? And if there's somebody in the group who wants to be the spokesperson, note taker, whatever, that would be amazing. It helps us keep things organized. So if we're ready to go, Laura, we're going to set up those breakout rooms and have a great conversation. Hey, welcome back from the breakout rooms. And Michelle's like, I have things to share. Awesome, Michelle. Tell us more.
I came up with 2 ideas that the others seem to enjoy, so I'll quickly share. It's about sharing. A lot of them had things they don't like to do, so I said, reposting. And so I said, instead of going to Fiverr, or elsewhere where you can get people, what if 6 of you or 10 of you all hired the same person to do those sorts of things, and they're doing the same thing for all, either 5 or 10 of you. That came to mind. And the other was, everyone in my group was delightful, and thought I would love to hear them interview. But then I thought, instead of only your voice, might you want to pair up with someone else here and do a podcast with the 2 of you interviewing? And when I've been a guest at a podcast with 2 people, there just seems to be a greater richness with different points of view and voices. So those are the 2 ideas I shared that seemed to be helpful. So I just wanted to share it here.
Excellent. Those are for folks that are thinking about getting into the podcast game or maybe growing their podcast footprint, I guess. Did any of the groups have conversations about podcast guesting and strategies that that work for you in terms of podcast guesting? No. Oh, Kimberly, yes.
Well, our group did talk about some resources to put yourself out there as a guest. We talked about matchmaker.fm, we talked about SourceBottle, and we talked about Podmatch.
Excellent. And also, we have a number of podcasters who use Innovation Women to find guests. We actually had one podcaster who has come back several years, and he does I don't know, is it 12-minute conversations with his guests, and he's like dozens of interviews. So it's a good thing to practice your podcast guesting. I think one of the other things that I will suggest, our friends at Podcast Ally, they from Earfluence, Dr. Sarah Glover hosts a podcast which is about being a better podcast guest. So I just dropped that link in the chat. All right. What other
Bobby?
topics? Yes.
I can't find my raising my hand, so I just raised my
Okay. What
actual
do you got, Marcia?
So I wanted to share that in my group, I shared that on my LinkedIn profile, I put in the headline podcast guest. And so podcast hosts who are searching can find that, and they reach out to me. Also, if I find hosts that I want to be on their podcast, I connect with them, I message them, but I don't ask them or tell them I want to be on their podcast. What I do is I do a message, they naturally go through and read my profile, and then they ask me. So it's kind of a reverse psychology.
Playing
It's
a little hard
working
to get?
a little bit. Yeah, a little bit, because then it's better that when they reach out than rather than me try to sell myself.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Annie?
I just have one tip. So when I'm bringing a guest on my talk show, a lot of us that are speakers want to speak and want to give a presentation and our 12 points to how to be happy. Please don't do that when you're a guest unless asked. So my guests that share a personal or professional story about themselves, about their successes, and my audience gets to know them, get the most referrals, get them the most leads, get the most people to reach out to me and say, I want to get to know them better. So remember that a podcast or a talk show is really for people to get to know you professionally and personally, not for you to teach at them. And I think it just changes the dynamics. And I think it's a hard concept for a lot of speakers to just be in conversation rather than presentation mode. That's my tip. That's who I like to interview.
Okay. All right. Deborah?
Well, I was going to say something else, but I have to react to what Annie said first because I completely agree. I do for my live show, I ask everybody to come 10 minutes early so we could just do a tech check, and I give the list of rules, as it were. And I once had someone introduce themselves for 8 minutes, and because of that, I now tell people, if you need 4 minutes to express something, take it. If it can be done in 2 or 3, even better, because it's an interactive conversation. So it's very helpful to give people a lay of the land. And I also say, at the beginning, I'll introduce myself, and then at the end, you can introduce yourselves. And then at the end, it's gift a goal. Where can people find you? That gets to be your commercial, and then a final thought. So if you can give people a lay of the land, that sets everybody up for success. The reason and this is a different thing, other uses for podcasts, Goal Tag came after your Goal Gag came out. It was my publisher said, hey, do you want to do a live show? It was something in my head. So I, of course, jumped. And then my new book, 52 Secrets, actually came from my show of bringing people together and interviewing them. So everybody in the book is either a friend of friend, or someone I've interviewed. So it's a great source of future collaboration and content.
Yep. And earlier we were just talking about the whole aspect of rubbing elbows with the VIPs. So that is also helpful when you're thinking about podcast guesting. I'm also going to come back with a little tip that I share with a lot of people that I talk to in terms of podcast guesting. Short sound bites. All right. I really have to say that a lot of podcasts that I listen to, it is obvious that the podcast guest is just kind of going on and on and on and on. And the host is like dying on the other side of the table. So think about how you can communicate the points that you're trying to communicate without going on and on. Somebody's got to listen to this, and you want short and punchy and not repetitive. That's a big one. I often hear podcast guests that come at different points from a million different ways. It's like you have not figured out how to say what you've got to say clearly and concisely, obviously. So just think about those little tips when it comes down to podcast guesting, because you don't want to be the guest that, number one, overstays your welcome, and number two, gets people to turn off that podcast. Telling it like it is. That's me. All right. Other interesting conversations that happened in the breakout rooms. Did collaboration after this event get set up in those breakout rooms? Show of hands. Because I'm seeing all kinds of be my guest, I want to be a guest happening in the chat. So it feels like it stands to reason that that would happen in the breakout rooms as well. I love hearing about this. I love knowing that Lioness networking and community events can help this kind of connection happening. Deborah?
I have 3 slots that I need to fill by the end of the year. So if anybody in here is part of a nonprofit, I've got one more slot on my Giving Tuesday, my Monday Giving Tuesday panel, which is the Monday before Thanksgiving. And then I've got another show I'm doing on Persona, and I need one more food person for the 23rd. So if any of these sound like you, please reach out.
Awesome. Connecting in action. Okay. And Annie, you were looking for Lisa. She is here. There she is. Thought we had lost her along the way. All right. Last tips to bring us home in our last minute.
I was just
Anyone
trying to find
volunteers?
Deborah on LinkedIn and I couldn't find you anywhere. Are you on LinkedIn?
Yes.
Yes. I'll put my
Absolutely.
link again in.
Okay.
All right. Cool.
I got
Yep,
one.
go ahead.
In my breakout room, I had mentioned a distribution platform. So Vision Pros uses Recur Post. So if you use an RSS feed, at one point they like loaded a whole year's worth of stuff in like a matter of 3 hours. Once they signed up with Recur Post to go back and post things. And so I don't remember what the price is. It's less than $100 a month, but they've done 2 case studies for them because it's been so valuable in terms of time and labor reduction.
Awesome. All right. On that note, I want to make sure everybody gets to their next meeting on time. I did drop the link to register for our December networking session on email, and also our next Lioness webinar, which is with Deborah, actually, who is here. Write a winning book proposal. So those links are available in the chat. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Thank you all for the great information and the sessions, the suggestions. And we will also be obviously writing that follow-up article. And so watch for that. I believe that will be up perhaps even later today. So take care, everybody, and have a good rest of your day. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.